if you can win the service game, if you can just provide a little bit better service than what everyone else is doing, if you can raise the bar in the way that you service your investors over the next year, 5 years, decade, I promise you, you will win. And how do I know that? Is because the bar for service is so stinking low in every industry on the freaking planet that this is the way to stand out. If you truly want to convert investors to become lifetime investors, do more deals with you, put more money in your deals, figure out the service game. So we're talking about conversion. So if you've missed this, if this is your first time to the Real Estate CEO Mastermind, welcome. Seriously, again, we've been talking about capital raising. Why? Because we're getting ready for our capital raising workshop. And that's a huge piece of this business. If you want to grow, if you want to scale, if you want to do bigger deals, if you want to have more impact, you have to begin to start leveraging other people's money, right? And you have to become a great capital raiser and start building teams and systems and processes around this. So if you missed our call last week, it was around flow. So we are talking about this cycle here that I want to share with you today. Okay, we're talking about a cycle called, I'm going to show this cycle to you right here. All right. This cycle right here, flow, conversion, and retention. And so last week, if you missed it, we did a whole webinar on flow, right? How to get more flow into your business. You have to, number one problem, raising capital. Most people are not getting enough attention. You're not getting enough attention. You don't have enough investors coming in. You don't put out enough content. Last week, I really tried to do something totally different than you've seen on any real estate webinar. We talked about YouTube. We talked about how to create and know what trends are happening on the internet, on all across social media platforms, to really get really clear on how to get eyeballs to you, to your webpage, to your content. And so if you missed that, then it should be uploaded to our YouTube channel in a few days, few weeks, Kingdom Real Estate Investing. So go check that out. By the way, I love what's happening in the chat right now. Awesome. Glad to see people are networking. This is why we do this. Perfect. By the way, this is also like why you should come to this event. People are literally making connections online. Think about what happens when we do this in person. It's going to be stupid. So today we're talking about conversion. And the reason I want to show you this chart and why this is so different than what I think you've heard anywhere else is because most of the time when we think about capital raising or when we think about sales, right, most folks think about it from a linear progression. Someone comes into our pipeline, we close them, deal over. Okay? Same way with capital. Someone calls us, they want to invest in our deals, they invest with us, boom, they're an investor. And I would say that could work. I mean, it has worked for a long time. But what I want to share with you is that you are missing out on so much more. The power, the ability to 10, 100, 1,000x what you're doing from a capital raising standpoint to create lifetime investors with you. And really, this is it. Like if you can get your mind around this graph, that it is not a linear progression, but it is a circular progression of flow, conversion, retention. This will change the way you think about business, the way you think about your sales cycle, the way you raise money. Okay? So who wants to learn how to really, why are you here? So conversion. Type in the chat for me today. What is your biggest conversion issue? What's your biggest conversion issue as it pertains to raising capital? Who would be bold enough to put in the chat, what is your biggest conversion issue? What keeps you from getting investors to say yes and say yes to more capital, to say yes to more deals? What is your biggest issue? Experience, credibility, educational content to put them over the edge. Okay, what else? Right. Driving people into the funnel, engaging. Great. Which, by the way, I love these answers. And as I'm reading these, I'm thinking, is this really your issue, or is this the issue you think you have? That's something to consider today. Is this really the issue, Marshall? Or is it the issue that you think you have? Okay? Just so we're clear. Courtney, I'm just about to do my first raise, so I haven't talked to anyone yet. That's a sign right there, Courtney, that might not go well if you haven't talked to anyone yet. If you're going out to raise money, let me just say, if anyone's here doing their first deal, go get the money before you need it. Go build your network before you need it. Okay, it's a lot easier to raise money when you don't need the money. When you are in a position of value, this business is a whole lot easier. And when you're scratching for that last million or that first million, this business is real hard. Okay, so Courtney, I'm sure you have, Courtney, but to my point, folks, is go early, don't wait, build that network, come to the workshop. Okay, so here's what I'm talking about conversion. I have 6 conversion points for you today. Okay, 6. I want to prove to you that conversion is not a one-time thing, that I have 6 different conversion points in the capital raising process that will help you convert more investors, cause them to want to work with you in a just a red hot way. Okay, increase your minimum investment. We're going to talk about that today, like why I think some of you could be a lot more powerful in the way that you raise money. Like you could literally, by doing nothing different, raise your minimum, right? Which would help you capitalize your deals. So I have 6 conversion points I want to go through today. So let's get into it. Before I talk about that, though, I want to share something with you, though, because as you look at this, I want you to remember one thing. I want you to remember really one thing today. Please dial in. If you're doing something else real quick, I promise you this point will change your life. It will change your business. Okay, please, 30 seconds, dial in with me. Put your stuff down. Listen to this. If you get all of this wrong and you don't do anything that I share with you today, or you don't do any of the techniques that we talked about in flow or whatever, and you can do this one thing, I promise you you'll win. It's this: service. If you can win the service game, if you can just provide a little bit better service than what everyone else is doing, if you can raise the bar in the way that you service your investors over the next year, 5 years, decade, I promise you, you will win. And how do I know that? Is because the bar for service is so stinking low in every industry on the freaking planet that this is the way to stand out. If you truly want to convert investors to become lifetime investors, do more deals with you, put more money in your deals, figure out the service game. Let me give you an example, okay? Let me get out of here so you can see me, because this is really key, because I want you guys to get this. So I want you to realize you're not just in the real estate game. Okay, you are in the service game. If you can win in marketing, you can win in service, you win. The other day, I was at a brewery, okay? And it was actually for like a networking event. So I'm at a brewery. I'm like the first person there, and so I walk up to the bar, here it is, warm day outside, young guy like me. I'm standing at the bar. It's got to be obvious what I want. I'm looking for a cold beer, and I'm standing there, and there's like a lot of things are buzzing. There's multiple people working behind the bar. There's like servers going in and out. Looked like the place where a man could get a drink. Okay, and so I'm standing there, and I stand there for I don't know. I mean, several minutes, like enough where you would think somebody would notice. There's this dude here who wants something, right? And this is a very well-known brewery in San Diego. Okay, so I'm standing at the bar, and finally, I'm like, maybe I should say something. Hey, excuse me, sir. Can I order? Can I get a beer? I mean, I'm at a brewery. And he said, this is literally the conversation. I said, can I get a beer? He said, no, man, we actually can't service you here. I said, oh, really? Well, what do I need to do to get a beer? And this is exactly how the conversation went. If I can't order here, where do I go? He said, well, this is what you need to do. Mind you, I'm standing at the bar where they're pouring the beer at, okay? He says, what you need to do is you need to walk around the corner, okay? And when you walk around the corner, you'll see a big sign. And on that sign is a QR code. And what you'll need to do is you'll need to pull out your cell phone and take a picture of the QR code. And once you pull up the QR code, the menu is going to pop up. And then you can actually select what you want from the menu. You can order it on the menu. And this is what freaking got me just nutty. He said, after you order it, you'll get a notification of when your beer is ready. And you can come back to where you're standing right now and pick up your beer. I looked at him and said, are you serious? In the time that you told me this, you could have poured me a beer. I said, he said, I understand. I said, really? I said, please explain. He said, we literally can't service you. He said, we don't have the staff or the people to service anyone who just comes to the bar right now. And I got that from a COVID perspective, but in my mind, I'm thinking, that's not true. It only takes one person to service the client. You could have very easily turned around, poured me a beer, and swiped my credit card in the time that it took to explain that whole process to me. Guys, Charles, yeah, it is the left coast, but let me say this is coming. This whole digital world is not California, dude. Like this is how most services are moving towards. The face-to-face interaction, the one-to-one, the personal is going away. Okay? This whole QR code thing, restaurants, retail, right? This whole personal thing. And for some reason people like that. But let me say this. This is why I want to get really clear. That was not the only time this happened to me. This has happened to me multiple times now, where it's almost a joke between me and my wife of just how poor customer service is, how absolutely poor it is. Go on an American Airlines flight, okay? Just for the sake of like getting this point, book a flight with American Airlines, all right? And that will be the example of how terrible service is in the flight industry. Okay, guys, your investors, and by the way, this is what this is not comparing your service to my service, right? Like I mean, I hope we both provide great service, but what I'm trying to get to you to understand is that your investors do business with a lot of folks, airlines, restaurants, financial advisors, I don't know, shopping. And they're getting such poor service that wouldn't it be a breath of fresh air that when they came to work with you, that you made it so easy, that you provided everything before they asked, that you communicated with them without them ever having to email you, that you knew exactly what they needed to take that next step, right? That they knew exactly how to get in touch with you, that they didn't have to wait for some bot to give them 17 instructions to get on the phone with you. If they didn't have to schedule a call or calendar call with you to get in touch with someone, if they had the information at their fingertips in an instant. Guys, this is how you win the game. So before we get into conversion, I just want to know, like, I just wanted to be clear. If you can win the service game, you win. Like, figure out ways to better service your clients and not just compared to me or compared to Dan or compared to anybody raising money. Like, go look at how things are happening in restaurants, in airlines, and just think, wow, if my investors are experiencing this at an airline, how could things be different when they come and interact with me? And just so we're clear, you do not need 10,000 investors to buy a bunch of real estate, right? You need a committed couple hundred, and you can buy any deal in the country. And I can assure you, as everybody's moving and these big corporations are getting to tech and whatever and systemization and automation, just be careful. Just be careful, because don't get so wrapped in the automation part of all of this, right? With Calendly and Active Campaign and all these cool tips and tricks that you hear, that you forget about serving people. Because everyone else is going to automation. The way to stand out is just pick up the phone. Have a way for them to pick up the phone and call you, okay? So, sorry I went on a rant, but it's that important. It really is that important. And I promise you, my company will win because we're going to do two things really well. We're going to market really well. And if you clearly you're here, you've seen us market. We send an email out almost every single day. We post on social media, all the platforms every single day, sometimes multiple times a day. We will win marketing. Our podcast just got downloaded 50,000 times today. We just hit our 50,000 download mark. Why? Because we've been putting out a show every single week since 2 Novembers ago. Sometimes we do twice a week. Okay? Just consistency. Just doing it. Just build systems and processes so that we never miss. Every day. Something's going on. Boom, 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 boom. Okay? So we will win the marketing game, and I'm learning how to do the service game. We will win the service game. We're not good at it yet. We don't have a way you can call in, but we will. We're getting better. I'm learning things. So those two things. So let's talk about conversion. So conversion number one, write these down. Get out a note, because I'm telling you, these are going to be really, really key. These are going to be ways you can, again, thinking about that cycle. It's not a one-time conversion. It's multiple times that you need to be bringing folks and converting your investors. Okay. So the number one conversion, the first time you're going to convert is on the intro call, right? So now that you've got the flow in, they come to you, they get on a call with you. This is the first time for conversion. And if you're coming to our workshop, we're actually going to give you a script for this, but I'll talk about that in a minute. But here's the first thing that I want to say to you on the call. And this has taken me some time to learn about myself. And now that I lead a mastermind, Kingdom Real Estate Investors, I'm learning this about the way other people talk, and I'm seeing this because it's much easier to see this in somebody else than it is easier to see in yourself. But the biggest problem I see on the call, or any time that we interact with people, and I've named this because I was a missionary. I call it the missionary's mindset. Anybody know what I mean by the missionary's mindset? And it's much easier for me to call it that and assess it that because I was a missionary. I know how missionaries think. I know what it's like to be poor. I know what it's like to not have a lot of money. Okay, I know what it's like to live off the donations of other people. That's how I lived for 6 years of my life, asking people to donate money to support our nonprofit and to also pay my bills. I'm not saying a lot of people live that way. It's not a bad way. I'm just saying it is a mindset sometimes, and you can get into this poverty mindset. And what you think is a lot of money for you, this is the missionary's mindset. Think about this. What you think is a lot of money for you is not always and almost never a lot of money for someone else. And so the way that shows up in the way that we raise money goes like this. I'm just, for some of you, especially starting out, think that $50,000 is a lot of money. Okay? So let me use an example. If your net worth is $1 million, okay, that's 5% of your net worth. 5% is a decent amount. It's not insurmountable. So you're saying, okay, let's say you're a millionaire. Some of you raising money don't even have $1 million in the bank yet, which is okay. Just using the example. So $50,000 for you is 5% of your net worth. But if you're talking to someone who has $15 million as a net worth, that is less than 0.5% of their net worth. Meaning this, $50,000 is so incredibly insignificant, meaning it barely will move the needle for that person. And so the way I learned this was when I was a missionary and a pastor. I used to ask people to support our nonprofit for $100 a month, $1,200 a year. And I truly thought that was a lot of money. Why? Because that was a lot of money to me. And I was so appreciative of that, and I still am, that people would give me $1,200. But as soon as I got into the world of real estate and I started asking people for $50,000, and I realized how easy it was for them to give $50,000 of investing dollars compared to $1,200 of donation dollars, I realized I've been speaking the wrong language this whole time, because it is all about value. And what seems like a lot of money to me, not necessarily is a lot of money to them. For example, I was sitting with an investor. I was doing these dinners out across the country, and I sat down with an investor who had $15 million and about $5 million in lateral CDs, which just meant, like, if you don't know what a lateral CD is, it's the stupidest way to store your money, by the way. Okay, this guy's making like 0.5% on lateral CDs that expire in kind of like a laddered approach. And he's learning less than 1% on like $5 million. It's unbelievable. My point is that when I said, hey, let's talk about investing here, $50,000, and even let's say even if we had a 3x return on that $50K, $150,000 was still not moving the needle for this guy. And so if I would have said, hey, do you want to invest a 50 grand? It just wasn't even worth his time. So the question was, he's like, well, what's the minimum investment? And I said, well, why are you worried about the minimum? What's going to move the needle for you and your family? What's important to you? Because if I would have said the minimum is 50K, which is on most of our deals, sure, he could have put it in the minimum. But again, I'm not getting his attention at 50. I want his attention. And so my whole point is, guys, the first part about conversion is knowing your folks, knowing your investors, knowing where they're at when they get on that phone call. I'm going to show you a couple examples of the best ways to just do that. And so if I can, I'm going to show some examples here of some things I pulled up, because this starts with how people come to your workshop. Okay. I think this is it. I think you guys can see this. All right. So this is Dan's website. I'm going to show you just a couple examples of how to know. So like, here's like the easiest way to know. Just ask. So like, how much are you planning to invest in the next 12 months? Okay. This is how most of us do it. I actually don't think this is a great way. I'm going to tell Dan that when I see him in person. I think because most people are like, you don't know how much they have. You have no idea if they're $10 million, $1 million in the bank, $100 million in the bank. How much do you want to invest? Most people are going to say this. Well, I don't really know you yet. I kind of just want to get started with you. So I'm going to click this. And so when you get on the call with them, you're thinking, oh, this person wants to invest $50,000. They probably only have $50,000. When in reality, they probably have a lot more than that. But because they don't know you or trust you yet, they've only clicked $0 to $50,000. Does that make sense? So you're changing the way you interact with people on the phone based on how they filled out this form. And the problem is they didn't really fill out this form honestly because you didn't ask them the right question. Here's a guy who's speaking at our summit coming up, Logan Freeman, who I think I really like the way they've laid out their page, because it asks a different question. It doesn't ask them how much you're looking to invest. It asks them their investment profile. Where are you at? Less than $1 million, $1 million to $5 million, $5 million to $10 million, $10 million to $15 million, $15 million to $20 million, over $20 million bucks. It just asks them a different question. What's your investment profile? Right? where do you come in at? And again, I feel like most people are willing to share this. If they're not, they can click less than 1 million and you can find out over the phone. I always ask this, hey, what else are you investing? What is your investment portfolio look like? And guys, that's an okay question to ask. You realize every financial advisor on the planet asks this question. This is what you are. You are somewhat of an advisor to these folks in the way that they should invest their money. It is appropriate for you to know so that they're not investing too much or too little into your deals. And so you want to know this type of stuff. And so this will help you get in the right mindset of knowing who that you're speaking to and the way that you ask up front. Okay, either on a page like this before they enter this or on the call. So getting to know who you're speaking to is really, really key. So I think that is the first point of conversion. Again, is not asking for too low. And the best way to assess this, so I hope that helps. That's the first thing I want to show you. But the best way to assess this is to go look at your average amount invested. Like, what is the average commitment that you're getting on deals? And so if you've never done a deal, this is a good number to track. And if you're doing deals, it's a good number to go back and look. What's your average investment amount? Because if it's around the same amount and it's been like that over multiple offerings, you might challenge yourself to think, is that because that's what I've gotten used to? Is that the language that I'm using on my sales calls? Is that the type of content I'm putting out to attract those folks, that same, whatever? And I would say the goal as a capital raiser is to get bigger commitments. Okay. And so I just challenge you to think, like, is it saying the same because of the language you're using, the mindset that you have around that? Just assess. And so that's something to consider. Also, let's real quick on minimum investments. I think everyone should have a minimum investment. Ours is 50 grand right now, and we'll probably move up as we do a few more deals, at least for first-time investors. And I'll give a great example. This just protects you, number one, as a capital raiser, because you never want to take someone's last 50 grand. I always ask that question. If you were to invest 50K today, or if you were to invest 100K today, how long will it take you to be able to give me another 50K, to reinvest another 100K? And the reason I ask that question is I do not want the burden or the hassle of investing someone's last dollars. Just don't. It's not what I want. You don't want that either. Okay? So it's a great question to ask. And the investment minimum protects you from that, at least for first-time investors or very special circumstances. It also doesn't give you an out when someone says, I don't really have 50K, could you do less? And you could tell them, hey, listen, we could, but for first-time investors, because we just don't know you yet or whatever, we haven't built, like, we like to keep this at 50K. And most of the time, people are just kind of trying to figure out if they can get underneath that. And so by sticking with that, I guarantee you'll find that most people come in. If your average investment amount is lower than you want it to be, or it's lower than 50 or lower than 70, really, one of the things that I would highly encourage you to do is to record your calls. And one of the examples I gave is a guy in our mastermind. So we were talking about this at our last mastermind in Dallas. He's like, man, our average investor is like 30K. I'm like, really? What's your minimum? He's like, it's 50. I said, so your minimum investment is 50 grand, but your average investor is putting in $30,000. That doesn't sound right. He's like, I know. So I said, well, who takes your sales calls? He says, oh, well, my assistant. I said, interesting. So he takes all of the initial calls on onboarding. He said, yeah. I said, have you ever recorded those calls and what he says? He's like, no. I'm like, well, there's your problem right there. I guarantee you. And I asked him, I said, is your assistant, like, how much is your guy worth? Like, how much money does he have in the bank? He's like, I don't know, less than $1 million. And I said, well, then I know the answer why. Because when he's talking to investors, he thinks that $50,000 is a lot of money to them because it's a lot of money to him. And so he's allowing people to come under that 50K because he thinks it's right. Why? How could he demand someone put in $50,000 when he doesn't have $50,000? And so it really is a mental game. So think about that in your intro call conversion number one. Yeah, that's true, Irish. You're a credit investor. You'd rather be in 2 deals at 25K. And if you were a repeat investor with me, I might allow that for diversification purposes. But you know, from if you're going to be a capital raiser, look, here's the thing, man. I want your attention. I want your attention. I don't want you to go put 25K in someone else's deal. Like come and put that with us. We're looking at multiple deals across multiple locations, different style of asset classes. Why can't you diversify with us? Right? That would be that just my response to that. And again, and if that was an issue to you, you'll say, hey, no, we keep our minimum at this, then that also may be a reason that we're not a good fit either. So like I just think it's helpful, again, when you put yourself in a position of value, that does become more attractive, because the folks that are allowing 25K that you're putting your money into, I would say need that money more than we need that money. And so that's something to consider. If folks are allowing you to put 25K into their deals, if you were to come to me with that, and I'll say, hey, that's fine. I'm sure there are a lot of good opportunities out there for folks to put 25K in, but just realize the folks who will allow your 25K, it might be a sign that they need your 25K more than we do, and that's something to look into. Just a good response for folks as a response like Irish just gave me in the chat. Great. Totally agree. I think that's an awesome idea, Irish. But just consider, right? Okay, conversion number 2 is the post follow-up call. So once you have that call, hope you're still writing notes, because this is number 2. This is something I've learned from Dan. Dan does an amazing job of this. This is why we're doing this workshop with Dan, is what happens after you say goodbye on the post call, and it's the post follow-up. So what Dan does, and I think it's brilliant, he says, hey, when we get off this call, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to send you a contact card with all my information so that you have me. Boom, service. How many people are giving out their personal number so that you can be reached, right? You have my email, you have my phone number, you have my LinkedIn, you got my wife's cell phone number. Like whatever you need to reach me, I got you, and I'm gonna send it to you right now. Okay, that's step number 1. Step number 2, he says, I'm gonna send you our previous deal deck and webinar via email so that you can see exactly what it's like whenever we put out an offering. Brilliant. That way they know exactly what to expect. They can see it. They get a feel for it. It's not their first time looking at an investment offering whenever they get it from you. So he sends that. And then he also sends them a physical, if he has like leftovers of his physical newsletter. So something physical they get in the mail. By the way, I think it's brilliant. So those are things. The other thing I've heard folks doing is they'll send a thank you card after every phone call. Not when people invest. After every phone call, they write it down, or they have their assistant write it, puts it in the mail and says, hey, nice to meet you. Thanks for jumping on that call with us. They have like 1 or 2 lines that it's very personable that they learned from that phone call that they put in that thank you note. And that goes a long ways. It just shows like, wow, this person cares. Wow, this person actually listened to our conversation and put it in writing. It's not that hard to stand out. It's not that hard to stand out. And that stuff really matters, because I say this all the time. Marshall, to go back, to pick on you for a minute, you said your biggest issue, if I can go back, was something about I don't have enough educational content to put people over the edge. I believe that's what you said. Please remember this, that people make decisions emotionally first. and then justify them logically second. Which means that thank you letter is 100 times more important than your newsletter. Now, I'm not saying your newsletter isn't important. What I'm saying is that that thank you letter emotionally triggered them to already make a decision with you. Your newsletter or your educational content is just like, yep, and I like this Marshall guy. You know, I've already made a decision, and seeing his newsletter encourages me that he's out there doing stuff. So just keep that in mind, that emotionally how we service clients is way more important than helping them justify why they should invest with us based on our knowledge. So conversion number 2 is post call follow up. Conversion number 3, again, we're talking about cycles. So I'm just trying to show you that there's so many parts, so many ways, so many times to reconvert your investors, your clients, to say yes. What do I mean by conversion? I hope that doesn't like a bad name for anybody. Like, what I mean is just for them to say yes. Yes, I want to work with you. Yes, I do business with Ellis. Yes, right? Like, I just want them to, like, multiple times saying yes. If they only say yes one time, you're going to lose them, because they need to be saying yes over and over, and you need to be giving them opportunities to say yes over and over. So conversion point number 3 is the webinar. Your deal webinar, if you're, I would highly encourage you to do a deal webinar for every investment. And this gives people an opportunity to say, yes, I want to come learn. I want to come check this out. And here's what we do. Here's what I do. And I'm testing this. We'll do this a couple times. For new investors, I do not make anything available before the webinar except the webinar. Meaning, if you're on my investor list and you've never invested with me, the only thing you can do right now, if you're interested in investing in our next deal, is attend my scheduled webinar. Why? Because I don't want to confuse you. I do not want to confuse you. I don't want to give you multiple steps. I want to give you one step. Come to the webinar. Every email, there's one call to action. Come to the webinar. Are you interested in investing? Come to the webinar. Do you want to learn how to invest in real estate? Come to the webinar. Do you like this market? Come to the webinar. What I see so often is emails, there's like 3 call to actions. There's a soft commit, there's your portal, there's your investor deck, and there's your webinar link. It's like, who's going to click all these links? How do I even know where to start? Control the process. So for me, if you're a new investor, the way that I've lined this up is that you have one step in the beginning is get you to a webinar. Once we're on the webinar, my second step is to have you make a commitment. I don't want you to make a commitment to the deal before the webinar. I want you to make a commitment to the webinar. On the webinar, I want you to make a commitment to the deal. Okay? And then once you're in the deal, I want you to make a commitment to me. To me and my firm for a lifetime. All right? So those are the commitment stages. So again, I'm not prescribing that. I'm just saying from a journey standpoint, I think we confuse people. And what does a confused mind say? Nope. Confused mind always says no. Irish says, what's wrong with soft commitment first? You know why I don't like soft commitments, Irish? Because they are good for nothing. What are you making a soft commitment for? It means nothing. You know why? Because you still have to come to the webinar. You have not made a decision. That's why I don't like a soft commitment, because it literally doesn't mean anything. If you're coming to the webinar, I know you're interested, right? On the webinar, then I want you to make a decision. The only ways I give soft commitments are to previous investors. And here's why I do that is because I know that you're willing to invest with us, because you've already made an investment decision beforehand. So the way I do it, if you're a previous investor with me, I give you early access to our deal, meaning you get the same emails for the webinar, but you also can subscribe to our offering and reserve your position through the webinar. Okay? That way, if we fill up on the webinar, you still have a spot. But if you're a new investor with me, I want you to come to the webinar first, and you cannot make a soft commitment until after. Again, do what you want to do. I'm just saying I want to be very, very clear on the next steps for you coming in. So as a new investor, you haven't been on our portal, you don't know how our process works, you haven't seen it, I haven't showed you, I don't want to confuse you. So instead of giving you, like, you don't even know what a soft commitment is, because we didn't talk about what a soft commitment is on our phone call. So like, you see soft commitment and you're like, does that mean I'm committed? Does that mean I don't want there to be confusion. So like, come to the webinar. If you've already invested with us, you can have access to it early on. So that's what we do. It's just, we're trying to make it very easy for folks. Again, my whole point on this, do what you do and do what you think's best. But be very careful about giving people too many options, because it will confuse them. And I see it all the time, offering emails that have 4 call to actions. I don't know where to start. And if you wonder why most people are not converting via email, it's because you give them too much in an email. So that's the webinar. We don't even have time to talk about emails. Yeah, I guess that's my point. Emails. Post. I think we've done a thing on emails. Just like, I'll show you an email today. Like, would it be helpful if I showed you guys an email? I just want to see. I want to show you how simple my email is. Okay. Here's my email from earlier. Here it is. Hold on. Sorry, need a second. It's pulling up. So this is my email from sometime today, maybe yesterday. Here's what it looks like. Don't laugh. You guys are gonna be shocked. Here it is. This is sent this weekend. Here it is. Here's my email. Register. RSVP for the webinar. See, most people would have like highlights of the deal. Why we like this project. And you'll do that. I'm not saying that's not good. What I'm saying is that I've already done that. I've already told them why I like this deal. I've already told them what, the highlights of this project. I don't keep doing that. I just give them a simple, hey, register for the webinar. This works. So it's simple. I don't want to confuse people. So be really clear. Okay, conversion number 4. We got a few more minutes. Stay with me. I still got 3 left, and these are awesome, awesome, awesome. Is post-close. What are you doing to convert folks post-close? So once they say yes to you and they put money in your deal, like, what are you doing? Here's what I would appreciate as an investor. How often, I love this. Andy said, I'm laughing because I invested in a deal with a 2-pager. Yeah. Guys, we're not even getting to investor decks right now, because they just so frustrate me. And I think you should have a great investment deck, and I think you should make that accessible for people, but do not rely on an investment deck. Why? Because it is a justification piece, not an emotional piece. People go there to justify the decision that they've already made. How many of you have looked at an investment deck in your lifetime? Please, this is an honest question. Let's answer this. We'll move on from investment decks. I do think you should have one, and I think they should be very good. But answer this question honestly. Everyone in the chat, have you ever made an investment decision, meaning you looked at an investment deck and wired the money same day or next day? Yes or no? Has anyone actually made a legit, I'm 100% making an investment decision off of reading a deck? No yeses for those who are listening to this on audio. All no's. So just keep that in mind. I do think a deck is very important. I think it should be well put together. I think you should spend money to put it together, but it's a justification piece, not an emotional piece. It's not the first thing I show them. So all 50, close to 50 people who registered for our webinar do not have the investment deck yet. I don't want to confuse them. They have a 2-pager. Send a 2-pager. Here's the highlights. No. You can no reading PPM, operating agreement, Irish, no, not until you attend the webinar. Once you attend the webinar and you see the deal and you're interested in the deal, all of that's made accessible. Or if you're a previous investor, all of that's made accessible. So I'm not hiding anything. I'm not keeping you from any of that. I want to give you time to look at all of that, but I just don't want to confuse you. So all that comes out. Okay, conversion number 4. I said post-close monthly touches. So this is what we're getting to. Number 4 is, I would just say if I'm an investor, I want something every single month. And what do I really want every single month? You want a check. You want cash coming in every single month, right? You want to get paid. That's why you're investing in these deals. Here's the reality. Not every deal cash flows right away, okay? Not every sponsorship group's set up to be able to give away monthly. That's okay. So if you can't give money monthly, because that's the best way that you know that you're working. Like if I get a check, I know you're working on my behalf, right? Or if you get a check from me, you know things are going okay. It's like, check, I don't need to ask questions. I'm good. I got the check. But if you're not giving a check, the best substitute is a monthly email. And so the best practice I've had, because I forget to do this, is I just set it on my calendar. The 20th of every single month, an update's going out, right? I will send an update on the 20th every single month of our deals. And it goes out like clockwork now because I've scheduled it. It's in our process. It happens. We won't miss it. It's very important. And so we send something monthly. You can rely on it. And it's happening. So I would just encourage you, either you or your team or whoever, put someone in charge of writing a monthly update on the deal every single month to go out at the same time every single month so that people know, hey, I haven't got an update in a while. They'll start getting used to the 20th, or whenever, the 15th, the 1st. They know that an update's coming. So that's post-close, monthly touches. Conversion number 5, we're almost finished here. For conversion number 5 is the next deal. So for us, again, the point I want to make here is I do let previous investors have early access, or they can opt to subscribe early to this deal. And again, it's just a way to service my investors. Say, hey, thanks for doing business with us. Thanks for trusting me with your hard-earned capital. As a goodwill, a gesture, I want to give you first right of refusal on this offering. So, and I make that accessible to them. Again, like, don't have to do that, but we do that because I think it's another way to just show for those who have already invested with us, like, listen, we care for you. We want to do business with you. We like building wealth together. And if you want to keep doing business with us, subscribe early because this thing will fill up. And so conversion point number 5 is we give early access to previous investors to come into our portal or to subscribe if our portal's not set up. So we do that. And then conversion number 6, and we'll finish here because this is so important, is the other time that I see as a conversion point, and this is really important, is when you mess up, is when you make a mistake. And this happened to me recently. Kind of had my first blunder as a capital raiser, as a real estate investor. We started a fund. We raised money for this fund. We were working with a sponsor that had some pretty big names to it, and I was really excited about the offering. And to be frank, they overpromised something that they could go out and find projects, and they weren't able to find projects. And we had raised money, and things just kind of kept going, and like nothing ever happened. And so I'll be honest with you, I was scared to call investors. I was like, oh man, you guys know how it is. The fear of like, what are they going to say? Like, oh man, we said we were going to be able to place this money and we can't. And it was just like, I was terrified. And she told my wife, like, I don't want to go make these calls. Like, we were on vacation and I like set this week. I'm like, I'm going to go spend the afternoon and make these calls. She's like, you know what you got to do? Just go do it. And I was like, you're right. I just got to go do it. And I made all the calls, and I would say that I just owned it. Listen, I'm sorry, we screwed up, but like, listen, I feel so bad. And I gave them options. We messed up. Like, I really thought they could deliver, but we just haven't been able to. And listen, here are a couple options. And so instead of just saying, here's your money back, I gave them options and say, hey, you can stay in the deal with us, ride this thing out, and give them like 3 or 4 options. And I said, hey, but really, I really want to continue working with you. We're working on a few more projects coming up. Would you be willing to stay with me? And if you like the next deal, I'll put you into that one. And you know that all of those investors, none of them asked for me to send their money back. Not one investor asked me to wire their money back. Every single one said, Ellis, I really appreciate the phone call. Thank you for the phone call. Hold my money. Let me look at your next deal, and I'll decide if I want to invest or if I want to have you send my money back. It's because it was just personal service. I owned it, screwed up. Sorry, I learned. But hey, I still want to do business with you. Here's some options. All of them, 100%. Right? We lost money in the deal. I personally taken an L. To your point, Irish, I can't share all the details of that, but I will lose money on that deal. Thousands of dollars will come out of my account. Not them. They're getting every dollar, but I will lose money because it's the right thing to do. So, but again, like, it's just not worth it. Like, I 10, 15, 20 grand is to be in this business for a decade, 2 decades, 3 decades. It's a learning, right? Andy, that's a learning, that's a learning lesson, 20K learning lesson. I'll take that, worth it. So those are my 6 conversion points. Now I'm just kind of showing you, like, these are all, like, this is such a cycle of doing business with folks. It's not one time of getting people to say yes. It's over and over and over and over and over again. And thinking about this from a cyclical standpoint and not a linear standpoint will change the way you do this business, will make you a powerful, powerful capital raiser, CEO. So I hope this was helpful for you today. All right, this is so much fun. I got to go. Peace, everybody. You're one connection away. Don't forget that. You're one connection away. We love you. We'll see you next week. Ciao.